The thing about Bioshock Infinite is there's infinite things to talk about. Tangerine, Tony, how
Infinite
are you?
things. I'm
We
doing
ha-
good.
we haven't done Tangerine in a long time, and there's a lot of things that I want to talk about. Stuff that's coming up for the Game of the Year's awards and my favorite games of the year. And recently, if you've watched the podcast, you know I did a replay through of Bioshock One and Two on like the hardest difficulty, and I did Big Brass Balls mode on the Bioshock Two, all in preparation for. Well, not all in preparation, but I wanted to try 1999 mode on Bioshock Infinite, which I did fully play through um, on the main game and the DLC as well. And I'll be talking about Bioshock Infinite, the DLCs of Bioshock Infinite, comparing them to each other, and then I will give my definitive list on all the Bioshock games and DLCs and where I rank them because
So this will be the end of the Bioshock saga.
probably not, because then I'll start.
Oh.
Well, I mean, we've seen like listings for like Bioshock 4 and stuff like that,
Oh,
so
that's true, yeah.
hopefully we get some more stuff on from I really love the Bioshock games overall, but I think there is some some sour spots, some stuff to be improved. So let's start with Bioshock Infinite. So I'm playing on 1999 mode. So take that into account. This is not just the hardest difficulty. It's because you can play it on hard, but this is like on top of that on 1999 mode. It's named after that because that's the year System Shock 2 came out, I think System Shock 2 came out in 1999.
Right.
Um, and it's named that way to be like an old school immersive sim, like very hard sort of game. So in this mode, it's not just the enemies do way more damage and you take way more damage, which does happen. The enemies are like bullet sponges and you immediately die a lot of the time unless you're in cover. But there's also like older school ideas like there's no giant navigation arrows in 1999 mode. You have to figure out where to go for yourself, which is a mode
Okay.
people were trying to. It reminds me of when Fallout 4 came out without the what's it called, like hardcore survival mode sort of thing,
Yeah.
where you have to like
Yeah, yeah.
drink water and eat food to keep yourself alive. Um,
It's extra stuff to deal with.
so you unlock 1999 mode by either completing the game once, which I've done because I've finished this game before, or you can enter the Konami code to unlock it as well.
Good. Okay, interesting.
So I should mention Tony has never played a Bioshock game, and he has informed me he does not want to hear spoilers for this 8-year-old
Yeah,
game.
my,
So
my, my plan is to eventually play.
I am going to respect his request until I have to talk about the story, because if you've never played Bioshock Infinite but you've played the other Bioshock games, this game is way more heavily story focused than the other games, and not in it has more story, but it's more important to the overall gameplay and it's more in your face. I will say, like, Bioshock 1 and 2 were really good. It reminds me of like Arcane Studios of fantastic environmental storytelling,
Yeah.
where you go into a room and you listen to audio logs and you look around and you know the story of what happened based on the stuff that exists now, and you can piece it together. You'll see the stuff in like Dishonored or Prey. It's fantastic there, and the original Bioshock games. But Bioshock Infinite is more like a roller coaster, I would say. It's more of an action game than an immersive sim game, I would
Yeah.
say, in a lot of ways, which some people like, but some people will not like. Um, I'm probably more on the dislike side, I will say, overall, but I'll give my reasoning as to why. So the start of the story is, Tony, you are a man called Booker DeWitt, and you've been told to go and rescue a girl, to go and pay off a debt. So one of the big departures from the Bioshock franchise is, so far, Bioshock's only been based in Rapture, under the sea. We are treated to a brand new world. We are treated to the world of Columbia, which I think I was streaming this to a friend, and he was saying like, man, this game has aged really well. Like I honestly think Bioshock Infinite um, has aged really well. Like the
Yeah, this
environments
is
of
pretty good
the
so
environments
far.
of Colombia look really pretty.
When
Basically,
did it come out? 2014 or something? Or
2013,
even 13, okay.
you get shot up into the sky and you go into Colombia. So I think the idea of Columbia is everything's floating in the sky. There was some sort of technology that was discovered, like a quantum particle or something that allowed buildings to float.
Right.
Which is, but it's very much more heavily emphasized. Okay, so the Bioshock games, they have themes of sexism, racism, inequality,
Yeah.
you know,
Underclass, like serving like an upper
underclass,
class.
pushing forward technology at the cost of ethics.
Yeah.
That's massively like in Bioshock 1 and 2, that is completely discussed, and it's good that it's discussed, it's interesting, but it's always subtle in a way that you can figure it out. Bioshock Infinite, it's very much in your face. You come into Columbia, immediately you're like, okay, they're all like worshipping, you know, a god, religion. Immediately you go to the bar, you see like the segregated bathrooms, you see like the difference between the people of the racism against the ethnic minorities. It's like these themes are like massively more in your face sort of thing than they are in the other Bioshock games. So that's different. Whereas in the other Bioshock games, it was much more to do with like I think like I remember playing through Bioshock 2 and playing through Minerva's Den, and there's a character called Porter who is a African American character, and there's an audio log from him, and he's recounting a conversation he had, and someone was asking him, "Well, we can splice ourselves to change ourselves. Why don't you just splice to be white?" And
Right.
that was like something that I never thought about, like. Um, um, Technically, people could do that, but we, you know, that sort of racism still exists in Rapture with all these like
Yeah.
technologies of the
What?
future and stuff like that.
What year are these games meant to be set in?
Bioshock One and is set in 1959. I
Right.
think this is around the same time, so sort of like late 50s, early 60s sort of time. Um,
Okay.
but this is set
So
in
like
the
yeah,
city of
kind of like
Columbia.
kind of the height of racism
Mm.
in a way.
Yeah, yeah. But they're so like ahead in technology, but so behind in a lot of ways that I think
Yeah.
that idea is very interesting. Like, it does remind me of like Fallout, where you have this heavy, technology, laser weapons, but then people still have preconceived old ideas, listen to old music,
And
stuff
they're
like that.
not and they're not using technology to like solve societal problems or like problems
Mm,
that affect lots of people. It's just like just to help the people, the few
yeah.
with the resources.
So yeah. So let's talk mechan. I don't think I have any gameplay about it. I just sort of recorded the playthrough. Um, of me playing at the beginning. So mechanically, it's very different, I would say, to Bioshock 1 and 2. Bioshock 1 and 2 is very like slow and methodical, and you get like it has that old idea of like Doom, where your character's carrying like 10 different weapons at once. Um, Bioshock Infinite, you have two weapons, and if you want to pick up another one,
Yeah.
you have to switch to a different weapon. This is very important in the 1999 mode, because that was something I needed to explain about 1999 mode. When you die in 1999 mode, usually when you die, you pay 50 silver in order to respawn. But in 1999 mode, you pay 100 silver, and when you run out of money, you go back to the main menu. Instead, and that kicks you back to your previous checkpoint instead of allowing you to respawn and continue fighting the enemies, which is
Okay.
pretty important. So it's sort of like a hardcore mode, but not fully, sort of thing.
Right. This is like halfway between.
Yeah, yeah, which is kind of annoying because like that was something that I didn't like about playing through Infinite was there is only checkpoints. There is no quick
Hmm.
saving, which I understand if people are like, oh, I don't want people to go through this game and save scum, but I was playing this and I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this. I want to go off to dinner or I want to go and play another game with my
Yeah.
friends group. It's like I don't know if I you can figure out if you get a checkpoint, but I'm trying to trigger checkpoints so I can leave. I can't just jump in and out sort of thing.
It's a shame you can't because something that Solaris Iron Man mode has, which
Mm,
is basically a hardcore in a way. Like you can't save the game; you have to exit the game, and it then creates a save there and then.
right.
It's like
That's a good
I don't know.
idea, I think.
They could have done it there. It's like, oh, like in a peaceful area, you could like just close the game. It would make a save point there for you.
Yeah.
So because you can always technically save scum if you know enough coding, like how hard it is to do that. And I feel like
The thing
it's still
is though,
sufficiently hard.
the thing is though, like I think if people were playing a single player game, why does it matter if they want to do that?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I don't really care. Like even with achievements, I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't the fact that
You're cheating yourself.
people still like cheat achievements on Steam and no one gets caught. So
Yeah,
like
who
what the
cares?
fuck does it matter? Who cares?
Yeah.
Like I was playing a game. Oh, I'll talk about it when I talk about it. But I was playing We Were Here too the other day, and I was thinking this game needs so many more accessibility options, like the ability to save when you want, so I can just come off, like the ability to translate text into readable text instead of just squiggly. You know what's it called?
Oh,
What's it called?
what?
Acrylics? What is it called? When you do
Oh,
like really fancy writing, it's
yeah,
stuff
no,
like
no.
that.
I feel like I've got it, but I can't quite remember the name. Oh, that's annoying. That will annoy me.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Just like fancy joined up writing sort of
But
thing, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah. But
serifs.
I'm thinking like, man, this, this stuff you may not want players to be able to set their own checkpoints and stuff like that. But who is it gonna hurt if they can? Like, just give them
Yeah.
the option at
But
least.
just give you
Like,
the
let
option to
them
be able to
choose how
leave
they
when
want to
there's no
play.
enemies.
You know
Yeah.
what? Because that was something that was hugely refreshing. Was when you launch Halo Infinite, I don't know if I've told you this, when you launch Halo Infinite, it literally takes you straight to the accessibility options. And I thought that was so genius that finally we've actually got to a point where you can set how you want the game to be played before you're playing it. I know,
Yeah,
kind of
that's so good.
revolutionary.
It's like
Um,
yeah, I think like first time setup of like most software, or even like this is kind of a tangent there, but
mm.
like even like soft or like websites online, like I think like a lot of social media should
this
have
is
like
this is
first time setups.
this is something I want
Like
to
we just
point
kind of need
out.
it.
Rapture's all about rejecting the state and religion. Um, you can see, Franklin,
I've got
Washington, like,
glasses.
yeah, that's Franklin, Jefferson,
Hey.
Washington. It's showing how like Columbia mixes religion and the state
Yeah.
and turns
Okay.
it into some like
Interesting.
super, power sort of thing.
So it's
Um,
kind of like two opposite sides of the coin lead to the same sort of
mm,
control.
yeah, yeah.
It's interesting.
But that is a big theme throughout the entire game. Another thing I should mention about Bioshock Infinite, I forgot how fucking long it is. It is so long compared to the other games. There's like 22 chapters in this game. It's really, and especially if you're
Like,
playing in 1999 mode.
how many chapters are in the other ones though?
I don't
Like, as
know
a
specifically,
comparison.
like, because I don't think they're done by chapters. But I will say,
Right. Okay.
like,
Fair enough.
um, I'll just Google how long is Bioshock. Bioshock 1 is about 12 hours long, but I would say Bioshock Infinite is about at least 20 hours long. Like, it's way longer than the other Bioshock games.
Well, even if you're like playing it like for your first time on an easier mode, it would be like
Yeah,
20 hours, would
yeah,
it?
I would
Okay.
say so.
It is very pretty, isn't
You
it?
have to go back. We're not ready for that yet. We're not ready for that
Oh
yet.
right, sorry. So
That's DLC footage. That's DLC footage, which I'm not.
spoilers for Lair in the video.
Yeah. But yeah. Um, I don't know. Bioshock. If I was going to sum up Bioshock Infinite in one word, I would say roller coaster.
Okay. You
Whereas
limit yourself to one word. Okay, that's interesting.
Bioshock 1 is an immersive sim.
Yeah.
Um, how would I sum up Bioshock 2 in one word? Because it's still an immersive sim, but it sort of mixes action in, but it still has. I would say, if I was saying about Bioshock 2 in one word, the thing Bioshock 2 does really well is atmosphere. The
Right.
environment of Bioshock 2 is its strongest point, I would say.
Okay.
I think action is probably Bioshock Infinite's strongest, and then Bioshock 1 is an immersive sim just through and through. Um, which is the big, change in these. I do love some of the changes they've, like, thematically, some of the characters, like, some of the enemies you'll face are like robotic Thomas Jeffersons with Gatling guns, or
Oh, yeah.
um,
Okay.
there's like these guys called
That's
firemen
cool.
who are sinners and they're like setting themselves on fire to like purge themselves, and they'll run at you and try to explode and stuff like that.
Yeah, that from what I remember from the marketing of this game, is there were lots of like cool like set pieces and enemies and things that I
So,
saw.
like a large part of this game, you will be with a character in like a escort sort of thing. So you will
Yeah.
be with Elizabeth, who is the person you're here to rescue. And I gotta say, like you think of like escort missions in games, um, Elizabeth is never like a bad escort mission. She never, you don't have like a health bar for Elizabeth. She just basically she'll throw you health when you're low. She'll throw you like salts when you need to cast spells, or what are they
Yeah, I
called?
remember the marketing around at the time. They were saying like they didn't want like considering the whole point of the game was like for you to connect to this character. They didn't want the escort to make you feel annoyed like other escort
I
missions in
think
other games.
the game is so designed around Elizabeth, it's at a flaw because there's a section when you're not
Right.
with Elizabeth, and it's by far the hardest section of the game
Really?
because
Oh, okay.
the game is so like designed around this mechanic of you having Elizabeth with you that the game like really sucks when you don't have Elizabeth. Like it's really hard and it's like not fun at all.
Getting carried by Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big things about the reason I say roller coaster as well, but it's very like laser focused on where you need to go. There, with Bioshock One, you could go into the bathysphere and you could go back to places you've already been. It's definitely not as open as a game like Prey 2017, like a game that open where you can just kind of go wherever the
Yeah.
fuck you want. But Bioshock One was designed in a way where you could at least like backtrack quite a bit and at least had the illusion that you had more open. Bioshock Infinite has so many like first person cutscenes and story beats. I feel like I was constantly being just rushed to get this point, this character, this story. You're doing this now. Like you can't go
Yeah.
back because as soon as you walk
It's
into this
almost
room,
cinematic in a way.
yes, cinematic is another word I would use to describe Bioshock
Yeah.
Infinite. And I
Because
think
like that, that
there's
that intro, like when you like opened up to the rest of the world, like after like this scene, like it's like that was very cinematic.
the reason I'm hoarding money in this intro scene, by the way, is because money's sort of your health in 1999 mode. Because when you run
Yeah.
out of money, you get kicked out the game, um, which is why I lent money. So I talk about playing in 1999 mode. 99 mode was really interesting because it forced me to play the game in a different way, similar to how I found playing the Bioshock games on hard and the no Vita Chamber modes. Like I found because I only had a limited amount of money to spend, I had to focus on buying upgrades for specific weapons. I used the carbine sniper method. Oh, if you're going to play this game on 1999 mode, the best piece of advice I received for the final fight is put vigor traps down. Not the vigor traps for the shield, the yellow shield thing. That made the final fight. It's so hard on 1999 mode, but knowing that piece of advice made it like way easier, super doable. And I think the hardest fight in the game by far you will come across, apart from the final fight, is probably Lady Comstock. Is probably one of the hardest, I would say.
Okay.
So watch out if when you're at the lady when you know find out when you go to Lady Comstock, make sure you have ammo and salts and everything you need because you will fight her a couple of times. On this difficulty, it is very unforgiving, very very unforgiving.
Right.
I
Were
would
you trying to get another achievement as well, weren't you? As
Yes.
well as playing on
So,
999.
so I decided playing on 1999 mode wasn't enough. I also needed to beat 1999 mode without ever using a dollar bill machine, which means so basically there's three machines in the game. There's Vigor Vendi, there's ammunition. I can't remember. It's like an ammo vendor, and then there's the dollar bill machine. So one will sell you gun upgrades, which you're allowed to use on this achievement. One will you can upgrade your vigors, which are your abilities, which you can use, and then dollar bill sells health, salt, which is like mana, and
Right.
ammo for your guns. And
Consumables that actually like help you throughout the game,
you
basically.
will feel the fucking lack of ammo in this game mode when you do not use the dollar bill machine. My best piece of advice for playing with that achievement: you can possess machines to get cash out of them. You are allowed to use possession on dollar bill machines. You're just not allowed to buy anything from them. So if you're thinking about playing a 1999 mode and you're confused about that, you can use the possession ability on the machines to get money from them, but do not purchase anything from them, even if they're bought in through a tear through Elizabeth's ability, because that will still count. So just be careful about that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, um, yeah, I think maybe I need to get into the sort of the story of Bioshock Infinite because it's so heavily story based.
Okay.
Um, So I'm just going to start talking about the story of Bioshock Infinite. This is going to be spoilers, and then Tony will deafen himself, and I'll
Yeah,
message
I'll
him.
create a timestamp and I'll piece up for a bit, I guess.
Yeah, I'll send you a message when I've stopped
Yeah.
spoiling.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to deafen, then I'll start.
Right. Okay. I will do that.
I don't know if you've deafened. It doesn't show me if you're deafened if I'm watching the stream preview. Let me. Yeah, he's deafened. Okay. So spoiler alert, Bioshock Infinite. The whole idea of Bioshock Infinite is you're fighting against Comstock to save Elizabeth, but you then find out that Booker DeWitt is Comstock because um, you made a deal with someone who was able to make a rift in the world to pull. Basically, I think Comstock's sterile and he wanted a child. His wife couldn't provide him a child, he was sterile. Um, so he makes a deal to go to another universe to basically take a child from himself from a different universe. So it would still be his child, but you know, he doesn't have to physically make it because he can't. And then the idea is that when Elizabeth gets pulled through the rift, her finger um, gets chopped off, which then creates this um, makes it so that one of her finger exists on one side of the rift and she exists on the other, so she can open these rifts and travel between them. And it's this whole idea that through these rifts, you will see in the Bioshock game, because this ties into the DLC as well, she has the ability to open rifts to other universes, where this is where they tie in Infinite to Rapture, where she puts Songbird into um, Rapture to kill him, and this is where the DLC comes in. And the idea is there's always a girl, there's always a man, there's always a lighthouse, and that's how they tie them. I guess that's going to be like the story for the next Bioshock. There'll be a girl, a man, and a lighthouse, and then I wonder if they might go for like a completely different setting to Rapture or Columbia, and then just go with that sort of theme. I think Infinite got a lot of flack at the time when it came out. I think a lot of people disliked the story, where it's sort of a time travel plot, I would say. Um, I I think playing through it twice has given me more appreciation for the story, sort of thing. I think I sort of prefer it now when I did playing it the first time, and like listening to things characters say makes a lot more sense when you know like what, like especially the Lattest twins. What they're saying actually makes way more sense when they're like, he won't row because he's already rowed. Like literally at the beginning, like he's not going to row because we know he doesn't row, because basically they understand that, you know, there's these rifts to different worlds. Um, the fact that Elizabeth like drowns Booker, I think the idea of the story is she's ending Comstock in all the realities by taking Comstock back to before he got his baptism to stop him from ever becoming Comstock. But because you're Booker and you were at Wounded Knee, you have the potential to become Comstock. So you also have to be killed, and you also sold Anna, your child, to become Elizabeth as well. Um, so that's sort of like the overall story. I think overall, I think I quite like the story of Bioshock Infinite. And of course, it is heavily based around the story. I do like moments where you get to interact with Elizabeth, and you know, out on the pier and stuff, just like dancing and stuff. That's pretty cool. I remember I was streaming it to a friend, and he was like, oh, this Elizabeth girl, you know, you're gonna have a relationship with her. I'm like, yeah, I already have one with her, buddy. If only you knew. Like, so it's yeah, I feel like there is this weird sort of relationship between Booker and Elizabeth, where Booker's like Elizabeth's best friend, but then she realizes that sort of her evil father as well in a sort of way, and it kind of makes the story more interesting. Um, but yeah, I think overall I like the idea of this racist cloud people oppressing the lower class ethnic people and then coming up to fight them. I mean, Vox Populi literally means voice of the people in Latin, so pretty poetic, I would say, for it to end the way it does. So yeah, I'll get Tony back and we'll start talking about the DLC. Let me send him a message. Need to pull up. How do I pull up? Oh, show chat. Hey, you're
Right,
back. Right.
I'm
Yeah.
back. Hello.
So let's talk about Bioshock. Oh, okay. What Bioshock Infinite has four DLCs.
Oh,
Um.
okay. I didn't
Uh,
think there's that many actually.
okay. So two of the DLCs are story DLCs.
Okay.
One of them is basically arena fights, and then one
Oh,
of them
okay.
is pay to win. Um.
What?
So, one thing I should mention, which I should add, I had an extra level of difficulty on mine as well because I refused to pay to win. There's a DLC that you got for pre ordering called Columbia's Finest, which basically
Okay.
gives you access to unique vigors and
That are
weapons.
just overpowered.
But throughout the Bioshock Infinite playthrough, especially in 1999 mode, you need to find every single tonic upgrade. Every time you find a tonic, it allows you to either upgrade your shields, your health, or your salts, which is your mana.
Yeah.
If you have the Columbia's Finest DLC, you get five of those for free immediately at the start of the
That's
game that
dumb.
you cannot earn otherwise.
That's
And
dumb.
to put that in perspective, I think there's about 20 tonics in the entire game. So giving you five at the beginning of the game is like a massive difference in terms of power level.
Just for pre-ordering.
You can still buy the DLC now, but it
Okay.
was offered as like a pre-order thing, I think.
That's pretty dumb.
But I was like, I don't want to buy a DLC just to make playing on a difficulty easier. That's fucking dumb. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I know about that either.
I didn't play Clash in the Clouds because I don't have it and it doesn't interest me, honestly. Just playing on battle arenas. Um,
No.
'Cause I also didn't play the Bioshock 2 DLC where it's just you're protecting little sisters for Tenet. I was going to say Tenetenbar for Tenenbaum, who's a character in Bioshock 1 and 2. But yeah, I'll go into the ones I did play. So let's talk about Bioshock 2 Burial at Sea Part 1. They split up into two parts, and it's pretty important to mention that because the two parts are very different, I would say.
Okay.
Um, in terms of their quality, I would say I think I prefer two massively to one, and I'll get into why. So in Bioshock 1, Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Part 1, you play as Booker again. And this is where I'm going to have trouble explaining this to you. You're in Rapture, but you're a different Booker to the Booker in Bioshock
Okay.
Infinite.
I see how it is.
Yeah.
I don't, but I think I just have
I
to
gotta
accept it.
say, I going and seeing Rapture in like this high
Full
quality
glory.
version, like going back and playing the Bioshock One remaster and looking out the window and seeing the matte painting JPEG on the wall and
It's
being like, oh yeah, I remember it being a lot better than this. And then going back now and looking at the well disguised JPEG image in Bioshock Infinite, it does look so much more impressive. It does look really cool. Um, but yeah, so
yeah.
this is set sort of like just basically the entire catalyst of events in Bioshock um, One start after the 1959 New Year's Eve party.
Right.
So this is set like just before it. So you actually get to walk around Rapture. You can talk to people and businesses. You get to see what. This is something that I always wanted to see. I was like, when you play like a post-apocalyptic game, and you're
Yeah,
like,
you want to know what happened
man,
just before.
it would be really cool to see what this stuff looked like before it was destroyed.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the best part of Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea. I would say is the fact that you get to go around and you get to see what it was like before it was destroyed. Again, Burial at Sea Episode 1 is pretty much Bioshock Infinite with a Rapture skin on it. That's pretty much what it is, but it's a lot shorter. Burial at Sea is actually quite short, I would say. Um, I would say you could probably complete it in like an hour to 2 hours. It's like a very short DLC in the grand scheme of things.
Do you say like short and sweet, or what the hell is going on
Um,
here?
these are so the little sisters model was changed for this one, or they look different. It's hard to explain, but they could be
Okay.
different little sisters.
Spoilers.
Uh, yeah,
Okay, fair
most of
enough.
the characters still exist, and it's without going into spoilers, it's gonna be hard. It's sort of intertwines with Bioshock One, like they sort of tried to connect them. I would say,
Okay.
yeah. Um, but yeah, basically the gameplay is exactly the same. One thing I do love about Bioshock, I do love the zipline thing, the sky hooks. I think those were really well designed. The fact that you can jump up and down and like grind along these sky hooks across Rapture, well Rapture here, but across Columbia. I do think
Right.
that is more like when I say it's a good action game, that's the action stuff I sort of like. Um, but yeah, it is weird to go through Rapture and then it randomly have like these skyline hooks around it. I'm like, that's a bit confusing. I did play this on 1999 mode, and I played the second DLC on a different difficulty, which I'll talk about when
Okay.
we get to
Okay.
that. It is cool to see like the mixture of Bioshock Infinite with like the Rapture plasmids back. You actually have
Oh, right. They got
plasmids
brought
now.
plasmids back.
Yeah, so vigors are different. They're like completely different abilities and different
Yeah.
themes. But there's some similar ones. So like in Bioshock, in Rapture, you have the electroshock ability, which is a plasmid. But then um, in Bioshock Infinite, you have a similar one called Shock Jockey, but it's essentially the same thing. It's just got slightly different upgrades, sort of thing. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Part 1, it's cool to go back to Rapture, but ultimately it is just Bioshock Infinite with a Rapture skin on it,
Right.
with
Okay.
a, Rapture story encapsulated in two DLCs. And I think fundamentally, the second part is so much better, in my opinion, because it completely changes the gameplay into something I really enjoy. So if I had to compare the DLC to the base game, it's like the base game, but with a skin on it, but it's like way shorter. I would say I prefer Bioshock Infinite to this because Bioshock Infinite is a much more expansive game, sort of thing. Like it
Yeah.
is an interesting DLC to try, but overall, I do think like Bioshock Infinite is a lot more interesting than this. But let's move on to Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Episode 2, because this is the really interesting one. Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Part 2, you're not playing as Booker anymore, you are playing as Elizabeth. And you know why this is really interesting, Tony? Elizabeth doesn't have crazy plasmids and crazy army strength. Bioshock
Right.
Infinite Burial at Sea Episode 2 is like a stealth immersive sim. It is fantastic.
Does that have like
There,
horror elements as well? Or was that
yes, there's some
okay?
horror
Okay,
elements to it
I
as
did
well.
hear correctly then.
Um, I will say so. 1999 mode was the mode for Burial at Sea 1 and Bioshock Infinite. This is a mode called 1998 mode, which is the year Thief came out, which I think you can.
Okay, right.
And what that mode does is it takes away all lethal weapons and only gives you non-lethal weapons. So Elizabeth is equipped with a crossbow that has like tranquilizing darts, gas bombs. You have one of the plasmids you have is called. You go to like what's it called? like a peep show sort of thing. You get an ability called Peeping Tom that lets you see where enemies are through walls. And if you're
Right.
standing still and using it, it makes you invisible. Which I think is
Okay.
hilarious that you can imagine what people would be using that for in Rapture.
Yeah.
But it's actually like a useful stealth ability in Burial at Sea Episode 2. I fucking love this DLC, and it's one of my favorite pieces of Bioshock content. If you'd asked me before I played replays with these things what my favorite Bioshock game is, I would have said Burial at Sea Episode 2. And going back and playing them, I cannot disagree with myself
Right.
nostalgically. I love this
Okay.
so much. I love. Okay, Andrew Ryan is the head of Rapture in Bioshock One. You get to go to the kids area, and there's a character called Andrew Lyon teaching the kids not
Oh,
to
okay.
like trust like communists and stuff like that. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny. Which I thematically I like the old Rapture themes and stuff like that in this DLC. But there's a lock picking mechanic, and it's not garbage. It's not water
What?
pipes, and it's not also garbage. So yeah,
Okay.
so throughout the base game, you get Elizabeth to pick locks for you, and that consumes lock picks you find. In this DLC, you have to pick the locks yourself because you are playing as
Yeah.
Elizabeth. So that makes it interesting that you have to, and then there's different things where you can pick locks. If you pick them wrong, you can set off alarms, and then you can also
Oh, okay.
pick the locks to hit a blue spot.
So
Um,
there's just like skill to like
it reminds me
the
more
lock
of
picking.
the hacking in Bioshock 2, I think,
Right.
which I think people preferred overall. Um, Andrew Lyon. What else was I going to say? So you find a skyhook, which you basically use as a melee weapon. But if you hit someone head on, it's gonna basically just stun them for a bit. Like it's gonna stagger them, and then they're gonna come
Right.
after you.
Okay.
Especially if you're playing in 1998 mode. I've seen a lot of people. I think some people are sort of mixed on this because they played it and they got the guns and they ran around and said, "This is Bioshock Infinite. I'm going to play Bioshock Infinite again." And then you realize you're playing as Elizabeth, who's not Booker, and you start getting your ass kicked. And
Right.
I actually genuinely think if you're playing this game for the first time ever, you should play this game on 1998 mode. It makes so much more sense as a stealth game than it does as a I'm gonna run around. This is an action
Yeah.
game. Um, yeah, basically you'll see here me opening. You'll see me like finding crossbows, sneaking up behind people, sneaking around in the shadows. Oh, there's also so if someone finds you, you want to like hide from them. The whole time I started playing this for so long, Tony, I was literally trying to blink like I was playing Dishonored because I thought I was
Right.
playing Dishonored.
I lose kind of Dishonored.
I think people say like it's like Bioshock Infinite became Dishonored, as if it's a bad thing, as if it's a
Yeah.
bad. Like people are saying they turned it into Dishonored, and I'm like, Dishonored's fucking sick. It's made by Arcane Studios, some of the people who helped make Bioshock 2. Like that's such a good point in my opinion that it's insane
Yeah.
that people would play. One thing I wanted to point out: walking on water makes you louder. There's glass you can walk. You have to watch where you're like different surfaces have different sounds. Like the stealth mechanics are pretty in depth in this. Not like crazy in depth like, Thief where
But
you
yeah, they
get
put some thought into it.
like Thief you have water arrows where you can shoot out torches. There's not stuff like that. But it's pretty in depth considering it's a game from, past the modern era of gaming sort of thing.
Yeah. No, it's good that we're seeing like I think I agree with you. Like this seems more interesting to
Mm.
me than base Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's satisfying. This looks great as well.
So you'll pretty much get I think you get about well you get four plasmids, but I never used one of them because it was sort of useless to me in the way I was playing. So you get the Peeping Tom, which I think is probably the coolest one. The Possession one's back from Bioshock Infinite, which is a good addition. Possession. It's very good because you'll have situations where there's a bunch of splicers running after you trying to kill you and you can't fight them. So what you can do is you can possess a big daddy and then get him to deal with them. Like you can use interesting ways to use your plasmids together like an immersive sim. It's a crazy idea, isn't it?
What?
Which I feel like we've completely forgot about when I was playing
Yeah.
Bioshock Infinite. But yeah. There was the final plasmid. It's like basically a shield plasmid to help with how like weak you are compared to Booker, if you're playing with like
Oh,
guns and
okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like this is a stealth game with an option to play loud, which I wouldn't recommend. Like, I feel like it should come on 1998 mode by default and say, hey, do you want to play this off 1998 mode? Because it's sort of designed to be played around 1998 mode, I would say. I
Right. Yeah, I can kind of see that, like forcing you to like play how it's meant to be played.
I fucking love this DLC. I think it's fantastic. Um, I love that the Circus of Value machine's back. They even got the original voice actor back to record more
Oh, really?
lines. Yeah.
Nice.
Horror. Oh, there's these
That
theater
is
things.
terrifying, though.
There's these theater things that you look into. There's definitely some horror elements with these things. Whenever something forces you to look into it and you can't see what's behind you, and then you turn around, you immediately know it's like, okay, it's going to be one of those moments. There's always a moment like that. There's one in Bioshock Infinite. There's one in Burial at Sea. There's one in Prey 2017. There's loads that there's at least one or two in Bioshock 1 or 2. Whenever there's always going to be a moment where they're going to get you. The atmosphere is going to creep you out. Can I say, okay, something I wanted to say about Infinite versus Rapture, or Columbia versus Rapture. I love how beautiful Columbia is, but I much prefer the immersive nature of being in Rapture. It's so dark and atmospheric.
I think,
Whereas Columbia,
yeah,
I feel like it's cool, the floating buildings, but I feel like
I,
I'm in a happy, sunny land. Everything's great. I don't know.
yeah. But I feel like I think I don't know if you I think you have this bias as well, but like I think I like the underwater bias over like being in the air. I think it's just a cooler setting.
I'm just a fish and everyone else is a
And
bird.
it's like always nighttime in Rapture, right? Technically, like it's like so dark in the water.
It's so deep under the sea.
Yeah,
There's no day-night cycle that you're
yeah.
that far down. Yeah.
So it's like all lit by the lights. It's like I'm kind of
Yeah.
just like I kind of like that. That's but yeah, I guess Columbia's cool as
But
well.
I think this DLC wouldn't make sense if you were in Colombia because you have to play around the darkness and the shadows.
Yeah,
Um. So yeah. This is again Burial at Sea is not crazy long. I would say it's longer than Part 1. Especially because you are like a lot weaker, and especially if you're playing at 1998 mode slowly and like doing the stealth approach. It is like a lot. I would say it's probably like instead of being like an hour or 2 hours, I would say Burial at Sea episode 2 is more like 5 hours. I would say, and there
right.
is some nice content. Like you don't in this DLC, you're not just in Rapture in this one. You also go back to Columbia for a bit, which is pretty interesting as well. So you do
Okay.
get because, like I said, I don't think this game would work, and I can literally say, you go to Columbia and you sneak around, and it's nowhere near as interesting as sneaking around in Rapture.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
hmm
Yeah, I guess the darkness does. I guess it was like thieves always at night, right?
Yeah, the idea of hiding in the shadows.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely systematically love this DLC. I think it's fantastic, and I'm going to give my definitive list of Bioshock games and DLCs. Okay, you want to hear it, Tony? Can you do a timestamp
I
for this?
yeah, I've got the time.
Okay,
Right.
number one, best Bioshock experience.
Okay.
I want to say Half-Life Alex Bioshock, but I can't because it's not an official
That's
Bioshock. Okay,
Half-Life, Alex,
Half-Life
Bioshock.
Alex
Okay.
is the best Bioshock game.
Number zero. That was number zero. What's number one?
Number one, Bioshock 1. I think there's no doubt in
Okay.
my mind that Bioshock 1 is the best Bioshock experience you can have. It's the most well made, the most put together, the most uninterrupted. Bioshock
Yeah.
1 is my favorite Bioshock game. Number 2, Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Episode 2. It is fantastic. This is my favorite DLC and my second favorite Bioshock experience game, whatever you want to call it. Definitely check out Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Episode 2. Next up, we have Bioshock 2 Minerva's Den. The DLC for Bioshock 2 is also fucking fantastic. It's its own separate experience, and I think it's better than the base game in a lot of ways. Next up, we have the DLC for Bioshock 1, the Sander Cohen trials, and like the roguelite stuff. I think it's really interesting. It's really short, but it is definitely very interesting. Then Bioshock 2 has a lot of strengths, has a lot of weaknesses. I think the big things that as the Bioshock games go on is the graphics always get more impressive and the controls always get better, I would say.
Right.
Bioshock 1, going back and playing it is clunky, but it's still like such a better game compared to the likes of, Bioshock Infinite or Bioshock 2. So, yeah, we have Bioshock 2 next up. Bioshock 2, a lot of great things. Environmentally, I think Rapture's never looked better, apart from maybe Burial at Sea. In Bioshock 2, fantastic environmental storytelling. It feels like Bioshock 2 had a way bigger budget than Bioshock 1, and you can really tell in the environments, I think, with Bioshock 2. And I love that
just like more impressive, yeah.
I mean, it feels crazy to play Bioshock 1 and go to play Bioshock 2, and in Bioshock 2 you can actually dual wield guns and plasmids, whereas in Bioshock 1 you had to switch between them, and it was very slow and clunky, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the problem with older games, right? They didn't quite figure out the way to, because like, what? Okay, my question is,
Hang on. Yeah,
would
go on.
would Bioshock 1 be even better if it had like the better
If
like
Bioshock
better
1 had the
mechanics?
mechanics of Bioshock 2, I think it would be better,
Yeah.
yeah. I think if you had the ability to dual wield plasmids and guns, and it was less clunky.
So very crazy, like you put Bioshock 1 like at the top even without like that improvement.
Yeah, I think it's just I think the game is a masterpiece. I don't
Yeah.
think there's any doubt in my mind that Bioshock 1 is the best Bioshock game. I don't think any. I mean, a DLC for Infinite is the only one that comes close. I think that should say all it says, because
Yeah.
Bioshock 2 couldn't come close. Bioshock Infinite can't come close because it's below Bioshock 2. We have Bioshock Infinite next. Bioshock Infinite
Okay.
is next on the list, and then
So is that right at the bottom then?
no,
Oh.
because the final spot on the list is for Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Part 1. That's the
Okay,
bottom
fair
slot.
enough.
So
It's
yeah,
almost bottom.
that's my list of. Again, I'm not. I haven't played. I didn't play the Tenenbaum trials for Bioshock 2 DLC, and I didn't play the Clash of Clouds DLC for Bioshock Infinite, but they're both basically arena battles, which basically you. The Return of the Medical Kit is a really nice addition to Buried at Sea Part 2. I really really miss medical kits. They removed them in Infinite.
Wait, what's the what is
What
this
are
like? Does
medical
this heal
kits?
you? Okay.
So in Bioshock, you go around and you find first aid kits, and you can carry like multiple first aid kits.
Yeah.
So when you're injured, you can choose when to use them. In Bioshock Infinite, you have shields and a health bar.
Oh, okay.
So you have recharging shields and then static health, and you can only heal as much health as you have. If you find more health stuff to heal, you have to leave it. You can't use it,
Oh,
sort of thing.
right. What?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Mm.
kind of dumb. I didn't realize that.
So yeah, there is like big changes between the games where I dislike changes like that. For example,
Yeah.
um, which is why I like Burial at Sea, because a lot of DLCs will do this thing with Burial at Sea Episode 1 plays it safe. It goes, people like Rapture, let's make Rapture again, but Rapture's pretty much just a skin to play more Bioshock Infinite, whereas Burial at Sea almost feels like its own separate entity, like its own game sort of thing. It's really interesting, which is why
Yeah.
it's so high up on my list of all the Bioshock games. But I think that should be about time for us to stop talking. So Yeah,
This is the end of Bioshock discussion into a new Bioshock game, I guess.
we'll see you back for Bioshock 4, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
whenever that comes out.
or if I decide to do a list of every immersive sim or something like that.
Yeah, maybe that'll
Yeah.
come up. Okay.
Anyway, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.